Hey everyone, it's that day again. It's Monday, and it's time for Jack and I to meet you at our tavern. Grab your favorite drink and relax.
Woohoo! I got mine.
We're glad to be here today, and we have an interesting topic we'll be talking about, which is nationalism versus sectionalism. But before we get going, there's a couple things I want to mention. The first is, Jack, I hope Missy had a great birthday over the weekend and was surprised with your daughter showing up. I understand she hit a milestone. We won't mention what that is. I like to say 39 years old, so happy birthday, Missy.
I like to call it 25 years old with 25 years experience.
So we've been doing this podcast for 3 months. That means we've got 12 under our belts. So this podcast, if you're superstitious, we're going to call it NR. And we'll just leave it at that. And,
I'm sorry, I can't grow up.
We're getting a few more people each week to listen to our podcast. It's great. We appreciate every one of you. Please tell your family and friends. This information we have is so important. It educates not only you, but Jack and I. We do our best to keep you informed and educated. And I haven't said that, our website is fedupwithpolitics.com, and our Facebook page is United States Constitutional Group. So check us out, become friends with us, so we can build a solid organization.
Yeah, the website's fedupwithpolitics.com, right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
So about 2 weeks ago, with the help of Margaret is Jack's sister. She does a lot for our Facebook.
But she's not going to go to the tavern with you at 2 a.m.
I wouldn't either. And with her help, we ended up getting our store up and running. It's called Fed Up with Politics. It's all sorts of merchandise you can get there: T-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, ball caps, all different sayings. Get your Trump shirt, get your Biden sucks shirt. Get your Trump 2024 shirt. It don't matter. We also have a lot of products for Independence Day to show your love for America. So please check it out and get yourself something. The more we can advertise, the more we can change people's minds and hearts to make this country, America, great again. I do want to mention that I saw this on the news the other day, but our crisis at the southern border is getting out of control. Wednesday night, 2 Border Patrol agents were shot at by people coming into our country illegally. We don't know who they were, what they were carrying, who they were protecting, but this situation needs to come to an end immediately.
Yeah, I hate to interrupt you again, Dennis, but I'd like to let everybody know that this was a running gun battle. This wasn't shots fired and a mystery. This was a shots fired pursuit further into the border, finishing up with another shooting. So I hope those officers are safe and home with their family, and terrific job that they got home that night. And thank you guys and gals down there for doing an impossible job. Thank you.
I'm sure they're shooken up from being shot at. We believe the Biden administration is failing the American people, and just failing the Constitution in general. But with Texas being a sovereign state, part of a national union, we're going to be talking about nationalism and sectionalism today. But Texas, you need to finish this border wall, because Biden administration isn't going to do it.
Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico need to, well, I don't know if Mexico will, because they're a very democratic, liberal state, but you need to get your National Guard down there on the border. Help these guys out, these guys and gals that are fighting for their lives and having shootings.
Yep. So Texas, wake up, call your representatives. This isn't a money issue, it's a protecting the people issue.
It's starting to work, though, Dennis. I'm hearing more and more rumbles. I don't know if it's going to go into effect about the National Guard. So we just got to keep putting it in the atmosphere to get the National Guard to help these guys and the ranchers.
Yeah, they need help. But build the wall. I mean, we don't know who's coming into our country. Gang members, drug cartels. Close the border. We want people to come here legally. We want a diverse population. Offers different cultures and benefits us in the long run. Helps us grow and prosper. But I think Biden should be impeached for violating the Constitution. So before we get into our topic today, which is nationalism versus sectionalism, I'm going to turn it over to Jack, see what he has to say.
All right. Today, I would like to try something. I just laid this on to Dennis today when I got here at the World Institute of Welcome to the tavern.
So,
Yeah. I want to try something different. I want to try and do a little debate, a little experiment. I think it's going to go very similar to, I like steak too, but we're going to try it anyway. Dennis, I want to ask you an idea. I haven't run it past him yet. What do you think if the Republican Party concentrated on the 2022 election to get a supermajority of? Because what I think if the Senate and the representatives get a supermajority, Trump is going to run in 2024, so he can get all of his agenda passed through. He won't be a lame duck president. So if he can get the right kind of Republicans in there as a supermajority, he'll run in 2024 and push through all of these these correct programs that he wants to do. The manufacturing in America, the
America first.
America first, the tariffs for China and Europe, and get the NATO on board. He'd be able to do all of that. Maybe get a guy like Ron DeSantis as his vice president, so that way in 4 years after that, in 2028, Ron DeSantis can run with the governor from South Dakota.
Christine Holm.
Yeah. That way they can run. But what if they did this? What if they were able to get a coalition starting today, which is what I think Trump is doing, getting in constitutional Republicans to grab the majority, and then everybody surrounding the wagons of one party, one candidate for president and vice president, and work on that for the next 2 years, getting cabinet members together and able to display how they're going to work it, how they're going to make America where it's supposed to be, the shining star on the hill, the shining light. And there will be no debates. The Republican Party will go around this one candidate, his vice president, and his cabinet.
In a utopian society, that would be great. But there's so many people that they aspire to be the president. So he'll always run challenge, and they'll never just focus around one president or one candidate until the process is complete. That sounds great, and it should be that way to take back the country. I don't believe that there'll ever be a supermajority by any party anymore, especially with Joe Manchin voting against the filibuster. He's voting against the Voting Rights Act. So their HR1, SR1, that's dead. So currently Washington, D.C. will not be a state. But where the problem is, I think, is not only the constituents, I say all politics is local, and they say that too. We, on a local level, have to take control of these Republican parties that are the old guard, the older generation, has been in control of these local establishments for a long time, and they don't want to give up. So we have to start going to like the South Strand Republican Committee, the Horry County Republican Committee.
Well, you're right there. The Horry County is, I like to call it a mini swamp. They had broken their own rules. They have 2 leaders in there, which they weren't supposed to. It's against their bylaws. But that's on us. We have to start going. It's the first Monday of every month. Maybe we should start taking our time off and heading over there and going to the meeting and not showing the officers of the GOP, the Horry County GOP party, but the members, how their leaders are wrong. They're just worried about, well, I got to go to Washington, D.C., and I got to go to a dinner here, and I got to listen to Lindsey Graham at one of these buffet restaurants, and he was terrific. That's not their job. Their job is to get people out like our congressman over there,
Rice?
Yeah, Tom Rice. They're hooked. They are convoluted in what's the problem in Washington, D.C. It literally trickled down to a small Horry County. Horry County. Nobody even knows where Horry County. You live in Myrtle Beach. They don't even know where Horry County is. Yet the leaders of that party are part of the swamp because all they're worried about is getting invited.
You know, you invited me to the South Strand Republican Committee meeting that one day, and we talked about it afterwards. But I thought they were like the most unorganized group. All they wanted to do was a bitch session. Bitch session on why Trump lost. We don't know the full facts, but they had their conspiracy theories. You know what? At that time, we need to start focusing on future elections. And just that they were coming up with all different names, and we got to have this, we got to have that. No, the people that are running will come to us, and we'll vet them. That's our responsibility.
Well, you know what though, Dennis, that was the icing on the cake of why we started this group. And we do have to get this group, the United States Constitutional Group. Our podcast is doing pretty good. Our Facebook is doing really good. We have over 1,000 members. But we have to start getting the United States Constitutional Group to go from border to border, coast to coast, start getting these places opened. But it showed. It showed the tar pits of politics, where you get involved and you get stuck in these things. There's no education on how to get out of it. We need to educate. That's what this is for. We are educating you on why you are going to the ballot. You're going to the ballot to get back to the good old days of the United States. And the Democrats of this country and of local politics want you to believe the good old days was racism, systemic racism, critical race theory. This is why we're there, and it's not true. And it shuts down the majority, the silent majority that they like to call it. It shuts them down because they don't want to be called names. You know what? If you educate yourself, you can ask the questions. When somebody comes at you and says something like that, you can say, well, what do you think is better? Well, I think this is better. Why? And you want to know something? As soon as you say why, they shut their conversation down on you.
Yep.
And they say, well, I can't talk to you about this because you won't listen. I'm here. I'm listening. And let me tell you why I'm opposing you. Here's the reasons. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. I can come up with 100 things to disclaim what you're saying. Now, what can you say to win me over?
They can call me any name they want as long as we're making progress and changing this America. Because this country is split. And we'll talk about that when we talk about nationalism, sexualism. But to get back to your question, yeah, I think it could happen. It's just going to take a lot of work. And we need a lot of help to do that. But we have to take the initial steps of everyone has to attend their local Republican, Democratic, Independent, Conservative meetings and find people that have the same mindset as we do. Because if they don't, we don't want them. If they just want, hey, we want this candidate is the only one we want. It's like, well, why? And he doesn't have to go by the Constitution. We don't want him. We want people that are constitutionalists, that will rule by the Constitution, and they know they're getting elected because of us. They're there for we the people. It is our government, not theirs.
Well, you're right, and it's every club. If you belong to any kind of club, if you belong to an Elks Club, if you belong to a Shriners, if you belong to a Moose Club, if you belong to the Boy Scouts, a football league, a baseball league, I'm not saying bring politics into there, but you're on the sidelines talking with other family members, and you get the feeling, and these conversations do come up because they affect people, and they're getting all free money. When I was back married to my wife and we had 4 young kids, and the government was willing to give me a couple $100 each kid so I could put them in daycare, you're damn right I'm going to take that money because I'm barely making it. Life is a steamroll, and the steamroll is going to keep going. But if you can argue because you know why it should be this way, you should be able to, you don't have to back down because of the name calling. The people that don't have the answers, hopefully, when you do have the answers, they go home and they try and figure out, why am I doing this? You know, we do the same thing now. We just started it on the Facebook. There's a lot of people. My sister puts on a lot of things, Margaret, and a lot of other people put things, and they're like, well, Mr. Lovell put down Article 5, state constitution, you know, to try and get term limits in. And, you know, we get posts on there, you guys are doing the wrong thing. If we're doing the wrong thing, then explain to me what the right thing is. And that's what we're writing back to these people. Okay, we're wrong. We can be wrong. What do we know? We're self-educated guys. We're reading books that we think are interesting and aligned to our thinking and our theories. If yours is different, explain it. You're not allowed to tell me on my Facebook,
You don't prove us wrong.
yeah, that I'm wrong, that we shouldn't be doing this because of this A, B, and C. Okay, that's easy. We understand what A, B, and C. We all know what the problem is. What's the solution?
You know, everyone has opinions, and we value everybody's opinion. So, like he said, if you got something better out there, you got something better than the Constitution, hey, bring it. Bring it.
Yeah, sure. Tell me. I will spend hours and days on the phone, on Instagram, on any kind of form of communication you want to learn why you think you're right and I'm wrong. I'm ready for it. And even this conversation between me and Dennis, this is exactly right. Yeah, we understand that it's hard to do exactly what I said. There's a lot of arrogance in politics.
Oh, my God, Israel.
They all think they're right. You know what, though? For the good of the country,
We all need to come together.
maybe your time will come. It's just not right now.
You know, there's a lot of these politicians we got to get out of office. Not only Democrats, but Republicans.
I would
as
say
well.
most. I mean, we got Mitch McConnell. We got the senator from Illinois. I got to look his name up.
Your daughter's gonna, excuse me, your sister's gonna be mad.
Yeah, Margaret's going to be mad. I forget her name. I'm supposed to look these names up first, but I didn't.
So, did I answer your question all right?
Well, you know what? It's something to think about. And
It is. You're right.
You know, and if you're thinking about it and you write a note while you're watching TV or reading a book and you just, you know what, answer to Jack. Next podcast, we can, you know, this is a running podcast. We're involved in it because we're doing it every week. Hopefully more and more people will. And, you know, listen, with these questions coming out, maybe it'll run like a soap opera. We can keep going back to these questions and
Heck yeah.
issues.
Oh, I totally agree. So let's get into nationalism versus sectionalism, and why is it so important, especially in today's society? See, our voting electorate is almost evenly split between Democrats and Republicans, and I've heard a lot.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it has to do with self-doubt.
That could be it. Yeah, that could be it.
I think, you know, people are watching what's going on in their country. Let's say every state in the union besides New Mexico, California, New Mexico, Arizona, actually it'd be South California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, don't have a border problem.
Right.
So it's a blurb on the radar.
That's part of this podcast where it's sectionalism. It affects one part of the country, you know. But I've heard a lot of people, and even a couple of guys we work with, they talk about dissolving this union called the United States of America.
Oh, God.
You know, I mean, they offer some strong points of why we should split. I mean, especially when a Democrat comes in office, they try to reverse what the Republican did when he was in office, and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's a lot of people at ease at mine right now because Trump is out of office.
Right.
You know, Trump was over the top, and he was first in a generation of somebody. Actually, he was probably the first in two generations of working that way. I think the first person in modern history with anybody remotely being close to being alive or even hearing stories of it, somebody that was just like Trump was probably Theodore Roosevelt.
So they figure if we break up the union, we can form two states, the Democratic States of America and the Republican States of America. Sounds like a great idea, but there are many problems with that, Jack.
Sounds horrible to me.
It does.
It sounds, I mean, you know what that sounds like? Good old,
Good
was
old boy
it?
network.
No, what was his name? Oh, geez, Margaret's going to kill me this week. Prime Minister of England during World War II.
Churchill?
Churchill. You know, you know, you can't do that. It's
Right. So it sounds like a great idea, but America was founded on a national scale. You know, our founders believed that if all states worked together to achieve a common goal, it would make citizens much stronger and feel like we are part of something bigger than we really are. So we have to go back to the forming of the United States to realize the insight and wisdom of our founding fathers. Back then, like today, they were anti-federalists, just like we have anti-constitutionalists today. Today they want to dissolve a union. Back then they didn't want to form a union. They believe the United States should be able to form confederacies with other states. You know, Alexander Hamilton was a strong proponent for a national government. And in Federalist Papers at number 11, he stated, under a vigorous national government, the national strength and resources of the country directed to a common interest would baffle all the combinations of European jealousy to restrain our growth. There are rights of great moment to the trade of America, which are rights of the Union. I allude to the fisheries, to the navigation of the western lakes, and to that of the Mississippi. The dissolution of the Confederacy would give room for delicate questions concerning the future existence of these rights, which the interest of more powerful partners would hardly fail to solve to our disadvantage. The ratification of the Constitution is one of the earliest American events that established nationalism.
You want to know what he thought would bring back nationalism the strongest was the National Bank. And he was right, because if you read through the book that we have on our recommended reading, which is
The U.S. Constitution?
the U.S. Constitution.
Origins and Development.
Yeah, it's on our webpage, fedupwithpolitics.com. We have a little spot there for recommended reading, which is the Founder's Key, the Liberty Amendments, and this book. The National Bank was very important in his philosophy because it would bring the American dollar as one. So if you started spreading out through the country so fast that you couldn't keep up with nationalism, each state would bring up their own bank. And now, you know, and it says right in the Constitution that states can't print money.
They can't make up their own.
Yeah, so that was his backbone. And, you know, you think about it. Think about it back then. This man was, you know, he wasn't even alive before Westward Expansionstead. And he said, we need a national bank. And here's why. And it came to effect. It went away. We got the National Bank the second time. But just something as small as a national bank. I know a lot of people don't agree with it. And now it's the Treasury Department, which is, you know, we have our own problems with that. That's another podcast. But you need to keep the entire United States, I mean, 101 economy.
You know, I don't know if you had a chance to read the Biden-Sanders manifesto, but we'll talk about it in the future. But the number of new departments they want to create is unbelievable. But nationalism, my friends, is patriotism. It's people coming together to form the United States of America. Sectionalism comes down to dividing the United States. It is only concerned with a certain section of our country, like dividing the North against the South. When sectionalism is strong, nationalism is weak. And when nationalism is strong, sectionalism is weak. They work off each other. And in the long run, nationalism has always beat sectionalism in our history. Nationalism is feeling a sense of pride in your country, like how we celebrate the 4th of July. You know, we give thanks to everything we have. You know, We have seen sectionalism at its best last year when we had all these riots in all these towns, and Democratic administrations had a severe breakdown of the rule of law. The rioters wanted to form their own government and their own laws. That, my friends, is sectionalism.
You know who else does sectionalism very, very good? And I've mentioned this before, because what happened in Portland and what happened in Seattle when they broke these cities apart and blocked off the police and blocked off their politicians, the Taliban.
Right. Yeah, we talked about them before, yeah.
Yep. I mean, the Taliban is all about sectionalism, and so is today's Democratic Party. And the only reason why the Democratic Party wants sectionalism is because it brings more power where? Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is, if you have sectionalism in today's society, now Dennis is going to go through the whole history of it, but if you have sectionalism today, it's like stereotyping. It breaks everybody down into little quadrants, and they can easily control you when you're a part of one group and not another, and another group over here and not that one. Everything's divided. So what happens? Everybody looks over to their right and says, "Mother government, what do we do?"
So even though nationalism began with the forming of our Constitution, it became more prominent after the War of 1812 with Britain. After this war, it was established that a great deal of nationalism was within the American people. And it created a sense of feeling together as Americans. We could do whatever we want to expand, and the only one to stop us would be us. One person we need to mention is Henry Clay and the American System. I don't know if you had a chance to read that, but it's pretty interesting.
Well, you know what? The interesting about Henry Clay is he changed his mind in the middle of it.
Yep. He served as a major general in the Confederate Army during the American Civil War, commanding a division in the Army of Tennessee in the Western Theater. The American System had a three-pronged economic plan on the financial ideas of Alexander Hamilton, and was supported by Henry Clay, and believed that we need a strong federal government, and believed the federal government should implement protective tariffs, which had a strong national appeal. He was one of the most influential members of Congress in the early 19th century. And as Jack said, the National Bank, the American System put that into play, along with America's first roads, the major highway, the second bank of the United States. It was a new national bank. This all happened during the era of good feelings. So, the War of 1812, it was a second war with Britain. The second time we came out victorious. And everybody had a sense of pride.
Well, that war had, people don't understand that war had to happen because after the Revolutionary War and we had the Paris Agreement, England did not adhere to the Paris Accord. They still continued to think of us as their colony. And to a sense, they were right. What actually helped us before 1812 was the judicial nationalism. Right. The Supreme Court sided with nationalism until after 1812 for some reason. I don't know why. They switched their mind.
Yeah, under John Marshall, it was always a national approach.
Right. And John, I don't know if anybody knows, John Marshall was the cousin of Thomas Jefferson. And he used to just try and tweak his cousin out by going against him a lot of times. Just to see, I guess maybe it made interesting Thanksgiving dinners. I don't know. And also, what brought this country together, like Dennis said, was the National Bank. And then they got rid of it. They got rid of that, and now you had these states making their own money.
Yeah, it didn't work.
No.
But states trying to secede from the Union is nothing new. Of course, people living in those states, they think they have a better answer than the national government does. And even though the national government pisses us off a lot, we still believe a nationalist union is still our best option. However, during the Civil War, the Union faced secession from 11 southern states, 7 of which individually declared the succession and wanted to form their own Confederate States of America, and that was in 1861. See, the Civil War was not just about slavery. President Lincoln believed that the Union should remain intact, and he believed it offered the best way for our country to move forward. The Civil War was the bloodiest in our history, with over 600,000 deaths and over 1 million injured. All that to keep a national union. The Civil War was this nation's sectional dilemma. It created Western discontent and economic sectionalism, with the South having the largest concentration of sectionalism. Abraham Lincoln is a supreme nationalist in the history of the United States. He not only abolished slavery,
Which was the second reason why he ran for president.
right,
This nationalism was the original reason why he ran for president.
right. He not only abolished slavery, but preserved the body politic. He placed the nation above peace and even above the Constitution. He saved this union from collapse and gave freedom to all of us, the freedoms we have today.
Well, if you want to look at other countries that have problems with nationalism, Spain, they have regions in Catalonia, and portion of Basque County, country, Glacial and Andalusia. I can't spell the name. The Ukraine, as recently as 91. Canada,
look at Venezuela.
1977.
Look at Venezuela right now. I mean, they're heading towards socialism. I mean, I think they're already there.
Well,
They're the richest country, and now they're struggling to survive.
I think they passed that and went to a straight dictatorship, which people don't understand that a true democracy and socialism all leads to one of two things: dictatorship or communism.
Right. So the people have served in the military, and people have served in EMS and as police officers. They have a sense of pride in our country, just like everybody else does. I know it's tough right now. We have some troubling times. And we should be proud of what state you live in and what state you decide to call home. I mean, as a nation, we're just over 240 years old. And we've been through so much. And we never thought we could see the other side. But we've made it through because of the leaders we've had. Because the Americans are who we are as a nation. See, we'll get over this crisis that we're in right now. And we'll come out much stronger on the other side.
Hopefully.
Oh, we will. See, as nationalists, we believe individuals and their communities are sovereign and have the right to govern themselves. Self-governance and sovereignty cannot be separated. They're one. They can't be separated. But keeping this nation intact will take a lot of commitment, and usually the conservatives are the ones that support nationalism. National support each state being sovereign and creating their own laws, and people electing others to rule. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Conservatives tend to be more patriotic and have a strong sense to try to keep this nation from falling apart. We believe in the rule of law, securing our borders, and holding people accountable, especially our elected officials. See, on the left, Democrats and liberals, they would rather prefer sectionalism. They want open borders, mass immigration, with the ultimate goal of globalization, which heads us towards socialism. The globalists view every crisis as an opportunity to advance their goals on the American people. So when you see the open borders, which they have now, that's not their end game. We don't know what their end game is. That's the thing. They want sectionalism. They want people like these rioters to do whatever they want. I saw something on the internet the other day. AOC. I don't know what's wrong with her.
You want to know what's wrong with
I don't know
her?
what's wrong.
Her the constituents that keep voting her back. The lazy, non-interested.
You know how she said how we get people to obey the law? Stop building jails. Open up for places for counselors to go to where these people can see. What the hell is that?
How about
How about the rule of law?
Yeah, well, you know, and she's saying that. And who is right on the right side of her? Who's standing right to her right? Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, and you can tell he did not look up one time during that entire.
I didn't see it. I just read about
I saw it, and he looked down there. He looked so small and wishing he could be anywhere in the world other than standing to the right of this woman, where her idiotic, blasphemy.
That's just the ignorance of the people we have in Congress, folks. That's what we're talking about.
And it's the laziness of the constituent. Not only did you elect her, but you voted her in again. She's on her second term. And I'm at fault because Schumer was a senator while I left New York. So was Hildebrand. Clinton got elected in there. Cuomo's in there. De Blasio's in there.
De Blasio.
Suffolk County representatives. He's a Democrat. He's standing there listening to this woman. Never once did he look at her and say, "Hey, that might be a little nutty, but we could do this."
That's when we get back to the uneducated people. People just vote for whoever they. Yeah, my dad voted Democrat. I'm voting Democrat. They don't educate themselves.
They believe what they're being told.
Right, and that's there's 155 million registered voters. A lot of them are that way. We need to change that. But just listen to this. Richard Gardner, he's a former State Department official. He wrote this in 1974, that a world government could not be established in one step. Rather, he argued that, in short, the house of world order will have to be built from the bottom up rather from the top down. And that an end run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece. But what Mr. Gardner said is exactly what is happening in our country today. It's been going on for years. The Democratic Party and their radical agenda trying to control every aspect of our lives, trying to take away national sovereignty. As conservatives, as Americans, as the voting constituents, we cannot let this happen. I've stated it before in a previous podcast. Saul Alinsky, he's the most radical person. He wrote 8 Steps of How to Turn this country into a socialist society. They have reached most of them, and they're not far off from reaching their goal. We must wake up and stop this charade today, or we're going to wake up one day and we're going to be a socialist society.
You know where Richard N. Gardner learned a lesson that he had said in 1974. 74?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was the first true progressive president the United States had. And he wanted a world order. And that's why he came up with the Legion. He wanted, after World War I, it was his version of the UN on steroids. And he got sick in the middle of it, and his wife tried to continue to push it through, but she wasn't able to. But nationalism. This is why nationalism is so terrific. Let me explain to you. I'll give you the exact definition of nationalism. And what I love to do is when I get these things and I tell you, let me tell you this, let me tell you that, I get these things from the most liberal side view. Because even they know they have to give you the meaning of these things, but then they put their spin on it. So nationalism is an idea and a movement that holds the nation should be congruent with the state. It also has the country come before any other country. But the important part of this, nationalism is the idea and movement that holds that the nation should be congruent with the state. You know what congruent means? Congruent means equal to the nation. So liberals have always Liberals have always been able to. Now, we have done, since the number one podcast was the interpretation of the Declaration of Independence. And we showed you how the liberal side either leaves things out or changes the wording of writings that have been done. So liberals fall back to World War I. And they always fall to World War I because they say that's what caused nationalism, was what was caused World War I. So what happened is you had all of these close countries right next to each other in Europe, and they signed deals and peace brokerage, not because they were all congruent in ideas, but because that country bordered their enemy. So when that border was invaded by one of their enemies, well, now they're part of that war because they signed a contract with them that if anything happens to them, and the reason why they signed that was because they didn't want their enemy to be on their border. So it was a geography issue, not a political issue. And what the liberals forget to tell you, that in nationalism, right inside the definition is congruent with the states. That's why the United States works terrific with nationalism, because that means that all the states and the federal government that binds it all together keeps everything together because we think the same agenda. What we think of is nationalism, protecting our sovereign state, our economy, our well-being. But they leave that out when they say, well, you can't go with nationalism. Look at the last time the world had full of nationalism. It started World War I. That's true, but it wasn't true nationalism. It wasn't states depending on each other. It was countries buffering each other from enemies. And that's what started World War I. Not nationalism. It was short-sighted vision.
So Donald Trump, he was the last president who really believed in nationalism. In 2019, he was before the United Nations. It was the largest annual gathering of world leaders. And he used a speech at the United Nations General Assembly to push his America First foreign policy agenda and urged his fellow heads of state to follow suit. And he said, "The free world must embrace its national foundations. It must not attempt to erase them or replace them. Wise leaders always put the good of their people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots." He added that globalism has exerted a religious pull over past leaders, causing them to ignore their own national interest. Sectionalism will never beat out nationalism. When people stand united, we all win. You know, we believe it should be the responsibility of every president and every congressional leader to put America first. We do that by being the world leaders, securing our borders, energy independence so we don't have to rely on any other nation for anything. America first, from the small town farmer to whatever you do. Have pride in what you do. We're supposed to be the richest country with the best leaders who are most knowledgeable. But currently we have members in Congress and currently in the White House that don't believe in making America first. We hope and pray that Biden takes the same approach, but so far it doesn't look that way with the open borders. It's not good for this country. He got rid of secure jobs in the energy industry, stating they can make more money working in green jobs. The only problem is, where are all those green jobs? They haven't even been created yet. You don't tell someone that you're losing your job today unless you have a job already lined up. I know I don't quit a job or move on to another career until I know I got that career secure. You know, sectionalism is not good for our country. It puts states against states and people against people. This is what all of our congressional representatives want, constituents that are divided, because that's the way they win. You're not seeing right now that we have the power to change things. But if you listen closely, Democrats and liberals have slowly been changing this country. Their health care, removing religion from schools. I mean, you can't even gather for religious services during this pandemic. But you know what? Who can? Rioters. You know, if you don't believe us, look up Saul Alinsky and read it for yourself. You will see how close they are taking away national approach and replacing it with sectionalism, which in reality is socialism. So, Jack, we're just about out of time. So, you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, nationalism works the best with the United States. And it works with the United States because we are able to promote national unity. We have a border to the north of us and a border to the south of us. The border to the north of us is a first-class world. You know, they came out of Britain, they learned their lessons, they're a good economy, and they're a first world country. To the south of us, they're not. So we have a border problem because the southern countries that are below us, there is no nationalism. They don't believe in their country. They don't believe in their government. They believe the American dream. We are able to promote unity, and we can encourage our greatness together, because without all the Americans, this country is not great. We need all of us together. And, you know, liberals have placed nationalism as the forefront of every war in history. The 8-year war between Spain and the Netherlands, the French Revolution, the 30-year war, the American Revolutionary War. Every war, World War I, was produced in their mind because of nationalism. And they refused to read the entire definition of nationalism, which is that your states that are run under the federal government are congruent with the ideas of the national government. We have a problem in this country right now with the administration that's there right now because half of the states do not agree with what the federal government's trying to say. When we have somebody in there that's a nationalist, the other half doesn't believe what Washington, D.C. is saying because of Saul Alinsky's teachings. And these people refuse to educate themselves on showing how great this country is and how great this country could be. With today's technology and today's money and today's people and ingenuity that we have, this country could be untouchable for 1,000 years. Who knows how long?
Right.
But because they refuse to educate themselves and they refuse to explain the entire definition. It's just a definition of a word, nationalism. It's just a definition of a document, the Declaration of Independence. They refuse to tell you the facts of these things. And with Saul Alinsky, between economics, education, press, now they're working on the judicial system and these other part of these 8 steps. If you educate yourself and read these things, you will understand that nationalism is as great as capitalism, which will defeat socialism, fascism, communism, dictatorships every day of the week. All you have to do is educate yourself, understand the documents that created this country, and believe that you live in the greatest country in the world. And if you side by these things, you will. If you don't, then you will just be like cattle. You'll be lemmings running to the cliff.
You know, so splitting up the union, dissolving this union, we feel is not the right thing to do. We still have a lot of pride in America. I still believe in America. I know Jack still believes in America. You know, we need you to believe in America. Not only believe in America, but believe in yourself too. Because we have the power to change things. We can't rely on politicians because the only thing they really care about lately is remaining in power. And our forefathers saw this way long ago about the federal government would get way too big. It's time for we the people to reel them back in. But Jack and I, we started this Constitution, United States Constitution Group about 4 months ago now. And I can honestly say it's been a great pleasure working alongside with Jack and his son Jack and Margaret. Again, thanks for all your help. And Mike. Mike ditched us tonight, so he might get fired.
Loser.
So our podcast is called Meet at the Tavern. It comes out every Monday. Every Monday, it comes out about the same time. Tell your friends and family. Take a look at our website, fedupwithpolitics.com. Like I said, we're slowly increasing our listeners and building up our Facebook page. And take a look at our store, Fed Up with Politics. So thank you for listening. Remember, knowledge is power. And we'll see you next Monday at the tavern.